On a stormy night, with the wind howling and rain beating against the grim laboratory windows, Dr. Victor Frankenstein stood in the center of the room, staring at the operating table where his creature lay. Covered by a thick white sheet, the being beneath it was not human. Surrounded by bottles filled with strange chemicals and gleaming surgical tools, the doctor felt that his greatest moment had arrived. His heart raced. He had spent years researching, exploring every avenue of science and madness in an attempt to achieve what no one else dared: creating life. The creature stretched out before him was the product of this enormous effort, a patchwork of tissues taken from corpses, stitched together with a precision only a madman could muster. Victor turned the massive lever, sending a surge of electricity through a web of tangled wires connected to enormous machines. The room shook as the energy coursed through the creature's body. For a moment, its body trembled, fingers twitching. Then, suddenly it opened its eyes. They were not ordinary eyes. They were dark, filled with a mixture of rage and fear, as if they were a reflection of a world that knew only suffering. Dr. Frankenstein, filled with pride yet tinged with dread, stood before his creation. He murmured softly to himself, "I've done it. I've created life." But his joy quickly evaporated as he looked into the monster's face. The creature gazed back at him with an unsettling hatred. At that moment, Victor realized he had not created life. He had crafted a nightmare. Days passed, and the creature began to understand its environment and adapt to its grotesque form. It was far more intelligent than Frankenstein had expected, and far more dangerous. The monster grew to understand that it was no ordinary being, but an abomination, a tool in the hands of a man who cared only for his own glory. One fateful night, after a bitter confrontation between the two, the inevitable conflict occurred. Dr. Frankenstein tried to subdue the monster, to control it, but the creature's strength was far greater than he had anticipated. In a blind rage, the monster shattered the equipment and destroyed everything in its path. Frankenstein was left bleeding on the ground as the creature stormed out into the night, disappearing into the shadowed streets of the city. Outside the lab, the creature saw the world for the first time, but it was not the world Frankenstein had envisioned. It was a world filled with weak humans, consumed by fear and destruction. The monster saw humanity's flaws and realized that Victor had been right about one thing. This world needed to end, and it would be the creature's hands that would bring about its destruction. Slowly, the monster began to learn and plot. It sought out deranged scientists and thinkers who, like it, believed that the current world was unworthy of survival. It amassed a following of fanatics, all of whom worshipped the monster's strength and saw in it the hope for overthrowing a corrupt humanity that had already damned itself through war and greed.